Insanity, insanity, whatever happened to humanity? Ooh.
Let me move back. I'm creeping y'all out. Let me move back. Is this better? Is this better? We're going to talk about this anime. Yakusoku no Neverland. Did I say it right? Yakusoku no Neverland, which is called The Promised Neverland. Yeah. We're talking about The Promised Neverland. It is... Wow, it is a Japanese anime series directed by Mamoru Kanbe. Never heard of him. I have to look more into his projects. When gifted kids at an orphanage that has been isolated for an unimaginable and horrible reasons, the kids discover the secret and sinister purpose they were raised for. They look for a desperate way to escape from their evil caretaker and lead their other children in a risky escape plan. What the hell was this? What was this anime? I feel like everybody that has watched this will say the same thing to each episode up until the second season. Of course. Shout out to two of my good buddies, my good friends that gave me a good solid recommendation, and it is Jacqueline and Melissa. Shout out to two of you girls. Y'all have given me a good one, and it was a good one. The Promised Neverland. People talked about it, and I gotta be fair, people has told me about it too, but it was probably like just one ear out of the other. And normally I'm a good listener. People when they tell me these things, I'm good at like being like, okay, all right. But when those two girls told me about this anime, they gave me good detail about it. Like, gave me the synopsis about it, gave me the story about it, gave me the whole pacing of the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to have to take a look at this. I drained through those 24 or 25 episodes like it was nothing. Because it was addicting. It was tense. It barely dragged. It barely had downtime. It did not have no fillers at all. This anime is not perfect, but this is an anime that when people talk about it, it's not overhyped. It's worth the hype. The anime picks up at a very good, fair pace. The anime with the story, with the choreography, with what this project is trying to show and immerse you to. They want to give you the positive aspects of what this anime is trying to show you before they give you the hard punches. And that is showing you the orphanage, showing you who owns the orphanage, and showing you who is in charge of the orphans. And it was well done. Because they did this just so they can build up of what's going to happen later into the whole anime's project. And I feel like that's important. When you know that this anime is going to have a dark twisted turn when it comes to certain events being taking place, you need to show us how well are they good at hiding. And they have done that well here when it comes to the first half of the whole anime series. And after we get introduced to the beginning half of the project, this is when we are introduced to three characters, three orphans that is going to carry the whole entire project itself. Like Emma, the main character in the whole project. I like Emma's character. The pacing of her was well done and well polished. Some people may think that she was like too reckless, or in certain ways like a daredevil, a daredevil in this project. But I feel like you need people like her to do that to carry on the entire series. But in ways I kind of do understand why people feel that way, because to do that means to drive plot. To be reckless means to make things be more and more risky for the whole franchise to keep you on the edge of your seat. But you understand Emma's drive. She gets curious. So by her to be curious, she has to investigate. And by her investigating, that means she's taking a risk. But it's necessary risks, because when they show us certain aspects of this project taking a big dark toll, that's when you want to know what the hell is happening in this whole entire orphanage. Then you have Ray. Ray is the common sense type. He is one of Emma's friends. And Ray, he's bold, he's outspoken, and there are sometimes he's an asshole. But for him to be an asshole, that means he is speaking out of truth behavior. Because there are some times where there are some obstacles stacked against him and his friends, and he says things that's on our minds, and we just be like, yes, I do feel the same way. You should not want to go further. And that's how Ray's character is. There are some times on the series that you may question his authority, and there are times where you may even hate Ray's character. But they have explained certain things of his actions to the point where you don't just understand, but in ways you can relate to him too. So I think the pacing of him was very acceptable and well done, in my opinion. Same thing with Norman. And I feel like Norman is one of the most fictional characters on this project, because by him being young when they introduce us to him, he's smart. And I don't mean smart as in like acceptably smart, where kids adapt to a certain way where other kids can't, but I feel like he was too smart for his age. And I'm not disagreeing with this, because in an anime like this, they do explain that some orphans in the orphanage can be gifted this way, which leads to the plot that they have explained to us when we are introducing these characters of why they do what they do. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when these orphans are caretaken in this orphanage, they get transferred due to how well they are when it comes to these tests, or just how old they are. And when they show us this and they explain this to us, this is when I was beginning to understand that there are probably more characters like Norman, and they might be even transferred later into the project and live their lives outside the orphanage. But that did not last long when they showed us the other part of the beginning of the project. And after they showed us these three characters and they gave us enough basically to know how these characters' intentions is, this is when they gave us not just more indication to the project, but gave us a dark turn opening of what was really going on behind the scenes in the orphanage, and actually what happens if you do, quote unquote, get transferred. You don't leave. The orphans thought that you would leave and live your life outside the orphanage, but no. So when they revealed this dark, twisted fate with these characters that gets out of this orphanage, they realize that they got to get the hell up out of there. And that's when they turned the whole anime upside down. And normally when they do these type of things, it gets us drawn away into the whole project. But no, I was hooked in, because these characters do not survive when they leave the orphanage. They get killed in ways that you don't want to fucking imagine. And when Emma and Ray and Norman came across this is when this whole anime just turned into a whole survival thriller horror fest. And this is when I was beginning to get more hooked into the project, because number one, you want to figure out why these kids are getting killed. Number two, you want to figure out how these kids are going to get out of this alive. And number three, what is outside the orphanage, and whoever is killing these kids, and whatever is killing these kids, are they out there waiting for them? So even if they leave the orphanage, are they going to be safe? They explain this in ways where I was hooked in from start to finish, and that's what actually made me want to keep watching the anime even more. And that's actually what makes this anime strong, is because not only did they show these characters and these orphans and Emma and her friends trying to get out of these certain obstacles, but it's actually believable. It shows you how they can get across it, even if they're going against big obstacles that stacked against them in high ranks. Like, they're gonna have to learn certain ways of how to apprehend enemies, learn ways to overmaneuver them, and then if they do escape the orphanage, what is awaiting for them from the outside. They explain this in ways where I was not drawn away from it, when it came to fictionized elemental gestures. And that's a risky move to make, because on an anime like this, you have a story. How believable is the story? How much can we relate to the story? And how much can we get drawn into the story to the point where when you show us certain things that's outside of capabilities, are we still going to be hooked in? I was hooked in a lot. Even when it came to these characters just being kids, majority of times, majority, all the times when these kids was going through obstacles, it was with adults. or even more horrifying than adults, trying to apprehend these kids and trying to get them abducted. And how they was planning their escape and how they was trying to figure out ways of just trying to defeat these enemies was literally acceptable. Because they didn't just try to do this themselves, they ran into other people that helped them out in their journeys as well. So they had to learn how to fight, learn how to survive, learn how to hunt for food, learn how to get the, have the odds stacked against the other upper hand as well. And I feel like with pacing like this, done with animes like this, you need to show us certain categories when it comes to how you're going to do the pacing when these characters are learning certain things. And this is where the downtime kicks in. When these characters are in a bad collision course of their own survival, you're going to have to show us how they're going to survive. And how are you going to do that without us being bored? But no, I wasn't bored at all. I felt like when they were showing these things, I was potentially on the verge of me just believing, is it something that I can relate to? And yes, they have shown certain scenes on this anime where when they was training or when Norman was trying to learn certain obstacles, I believed it. I believed it a lot. And there was even times where certain enemies learned from their own obstacles as well. So it's not where they learn certain things and the enemy just falls into their mercy. No. By these enemies being adults and they're being more terrifying than Emma and her friends, they gave us more believable obstacles that these enemies can easily have 2 steps ahead of them, which made this anime even more enjoyable. When this project continues, they show us certain realistic aspect gestures of these 3 characters in the paths that they're going to be taking. The anime starts off when Emma, Norman, and Ray are very much like infants. They're like, I don't even think they were even like 10 years old when the whole project starts. But the anime continues when they are aging, to the point where they're like little adults, like pre-teens in ways. So when this happens, they change their ways. They change the way how they look at certain things. And above all, you begin to see their routes change too. And it was believable. Now, for Emma's perspective, when they revealed certain things that was happening outside the orphanage, she was beginning to understand why things were the way they was and why things were so fucked up in this world. So she tries to come out with reason. And by us seeing how things was in the beginning run up until now, people may not agreed of Emma's change, but I did. I felt like, okay, I get it. You know, there are going to be people that wants to make peace and just forgive. But this is when you have Norman and you have Ray's character to thank for, when it comes to their differentiation choices. By them being older, they had plans, but they wanted a more mature way of how to adjust and how to execute it. So this is when the fan base was beginning to have certain type of disconnect of people's opinions and sometimes people's criticisms of how these characters was living their lives and making their choices. But honestly, my issue was not the choices that they made. Because I feel like the way how they explained it and the way how they did the pacing with these characters, the route that they have chosen was believable. But what I did not like was how fast they was doing the execution of these choices after season 2. Season 1 had very good chemistry. Season 1 had good tension. Season 1 had good pacing. Season 1 had very good dialogue. Season 1 had very good character development. Season 1 had me very, very hooked, to the point where I couldn't wait to watch season 2. But people that watched season 2 gave me some caution. Told me that season 2 didn't end well. Season 2 wasn't successful. Season 2 was trash. Season 2 was literally horrible. And I'm like, it was that bad? Now, to be fair, season 2, I was hooked. Season 2 was not bad. But it did feel rushed. I felt like season 2, it's like they had everything that was going on and they try to explain it all within the last couple episodes. And I'm like, no, dude, you need to have pinpoint pacing when it comes to this stuff. I mean, they tried to explain what was outside, why things was happening, why I can't spoil it, but they try to explain why the person made a choice to do certain things and why they decide not to do it. Same thing with other characters as well. They try to explain the twist to the whole series, and I'm like, how is y'all gonna explain all this? And we're about to wrap this whole thing up. And then it all just ended in ways where it made me still question, like, Did Emma find what she was looking for? Did Norman try to fix what was wrong with him? Did did Ray ever try to confront a certain somebody about their certain situation? So it was like, maybe they did, but the anime ended with so many questions answered, to the point where I feel like if you turn away for a second, if you turn away for a whole second, 10 questions would have missed your whole interest. And that's the reason why people was giving this anime so much shit, was because a lot of things on this anime had done right with the first season. So people couldn't wait for season 2 to drop, but then when it dropped, it crash landed. I'm gonna make an example like this. Attack on Titan. Well-known anime. Season 1. Imagine if Attack on Titan, the way how season 1 ended, imagine if they tried to end the whole series on season 2. Think about that. And if you've seen the final season all the way into season 1, you know that's impossible. But the Promised Neverland is like, look, hold my beer, we can do that. They literally did this. And the reason I'm comparing Attack on Titan, because it started off the same way that The Promised Neverland did. The characters started off young and they ended when they was literally grown-ups. The Promised Neverland did all that in 2 seasons. Now they do have a manga, they do have a novel, they do have a set piece for you to look into, just so you can see how things was in the forefront. And I have to agree on this. And as much as I hate comparing novels to anime projects, this is something you may want to just read other than watch. Because even though I enjoyed The Promised Neverland, I give it high praise, y'all know me when it comes to hard criticism. I can't ignore shit like this. I wanted to give this anime very good hits when it comes to the positive things that people said about it. But when I was telling people how I really felt about it, those same people agreed. In fact, it was the ones that warned me about the second season. So people wasn't lying. People wasn't exaggerating. People was not going overboard of just how much they didn't like it. Even when they were saying that the second season was terrible, part of me understands where they're coming from, because they feel like the pacing of these main characters that we have grown and loved and related to could have done better when it came to their final decisions of their choices of the final project confrontations. Overall, this anime was great, but this anime is like this, for example. Season 1, you flying to the moon. You're enjoying the atmosphere, you're enjoying the visuals, you're enjoying like the ride. Season 2, you crash land. That's how it is. Yeah. I'm gonna have to give The Promised Neverland, which is called Yakusoku no Neverland, a B. Ooh, man, my back. Jesus Christ. Either way, it's getting late. That's all I have to say for today. Please stay tuned for my upcoming reviews and videos headed your way. This is Hugo, your critic teacher, and I hope you all have a good day.